The episode of the night. Hello and welcome to Blackbird Town, an audio story podcast thingy. Today you will be listening to the first episode, the episode of the night. But before you arrive there you might want some general information about the town. You see, Blackbird Town is not a normal place. You can't just get there by car, bus or plane. It exists in multiple places at once. An alternative timeline, a parallel universe that collided with Earth. A place most people only reach through their dreams. Not you though, but that story is for another week. This night guy is kind of important for the town he will get to. Let us see how his story starts. Maybe he will tell you the whole thing himself when you meet each other later. Once upon a time there was a kingdom. The kingdom was one with many laws. Some thought that the king was too controlling. Not the people of Blackbird Town. They didn't care about the king. Almost all of them agreed that the town was located outside of the kingdom. The knights had tried to implement new laws for the town to follow. But they just didn't care. The knights had come up with a plan. It was not like they were lying to the king, no, it was more of like just agreeing to not talk about any details about their trips over there. The king's assistant and right-hand man was suspicious of nature. He had figured out that something was up with the reports of the king's knights about the trips over to Blackbird Town. He demanded that a set of new knights would take over the area as the messengers. They would write down everything they saw. All the things. The big stuff and down to the teeniest movement of those they questioned. For a matter of a fact he was pissed. The king would not be happy when and if he found out about the situation. The group of knights gathered early morning outside the stables. Each one of them had gotten a scroll of newly implemented rules that they packed securely into their bags. The king's assistant chatted over and over again about how important their work was. That they had to send letters updating him on the situation in Blackbird Town. All the knights swore to follow the assistant's instructions and started one by one to part way from the stables. One knight was left behind. He looked at the assistant and got the question, well, why are you not departing? And told him, I do not have a horse, sir. Just walk in the stables and take one then. The assistant walked away before any further questions could be asked. The knight was quite young, in his early 20s. This was the first really important job he had ever had. As much as he was scared to mess it all up, he also did not know what he was doing most of the time. The knight had looked up to the other knights all his life. Read about them, listen to stories and gossip about them. And now he was one of them, and they had just left him by himself. The knight thought that they were gonna go in groups, but that thought appeared false by now. He looked around in the stables for a short bit and decided to take the first horse that took his attention. He started his ride out of the castle gates that lovely morning, not knowing that soon the news that the prince's horse was stolen would spread the kingdom. The knight followed a river for the whole day, taking many breaks and stops for map reading. Blackbird Town was a place he had never visited before. When the night arrived and stars lit up the sky, he found a place to stay at a farmhouse. The knight thanked them but knew that they probably did not want him there and only let him stay so they would not get in trouble with the king. The knight sat up on his horse as the morning had barely begun. That day the knight started traveling down a road through a forest. He traveled for an hour before meeting a carriage going in the opposite direction. He made them go to the side of the road so when they got parallel with the carriage, he started to ride next to them until they stopped and started a conversation. The knight asked them about their well-being, who they are and where they were going. A man slightly older than the knight himself was driving. He answered his question with hesitation. When they made a halt, mumbling voices were heard from the carriage. The knight looked through his bag for the papers. A loud female voice asked why they stood still when two persons made it out the carriage. "Oh, it is a knight you knew here, bud. Here, take this so we can just continue, please," the person said, and threw him a bottle. The knight almost did not catch it. The knight asked what it was and if they were trying to bribe him. They laughed at him and quickly stopped when they noticed that he did not laugh back. "Well, it usually works," they said. The knight just let them go and continue their journey. He had tried to give back the bottle, but they insisted he keep it. After another day of horseback riding, he saw lights in the distance. He hurried over towards them and noticed a group of people walking towards him suddenly changed direction. The knight jumped off the horse and walked beside it. A boy sitting on the roof of a cottage tossed a small object at him. When the knight stared back at the boy, he ran over to a window and got indoors. The knight looked for a place to stay. The hotel was supposedly full. So, he found an inn on the outer edge of town.